Today I will talk about the subject management of technology. It's a very interesting subject, a very vital one, sometimes a less understood one. It's not just less understood, the importance of this subject is not sometimes fully comprehended or even fully appreciated by a large audience around the world. Engineering graduates don't understand sometimes what is the meaning of management of technology, though they understand engineering and various aspects of it per se. Now, when we look around in the world that we live in, we see sometimes various kinds of flawed technologies and failures in technologies. Of technology is not about flawed technologies, but we'll come to that. I won't name the company, but there's an airline company that developed a new passenger airliner, force fitting two much fuel efficient heavy engines under its wings and making some kind of compensatory algorithm for the pilots who fly that plane. We have had accidents with that plane. When the plane is in the takeoff mode, the heavier engines create a drag on the plane, badly affecting its stability. If the pilots do not fully appreciate what has to be done or do not follow the procedures beforehand, sometimes it will be late for them or sometimes too late for them in the air to take the corrective action what they should be taking. They gasp helplessly only to see that after some time the plane nosedives and we have a crash. A very sad situation, very sad situation. Definitely an issue that could come under the overall ambit of management of technology. Um, the pilots maybe were not properly trained, or you must be careful when you fly that plane, or the technology by itself might be flawed, but it has to be investigated to see where the fault really lies. But it seems to be a highly and new technology built in a hurry and put into service without proper planning and precautions. Management of technology will to be a subject in vogue because we are trying to have increased levels of efficiency. Look at the, but I have to come to what is the meaning of management of technology. It might mean three, four, or five things. We have to crisply understand what it is. Management of technology is first of all different from technology management. Many of our students in our engineering colleges are sometimes so, at least in our country, in India, are so focused on learning subjects like mathematics and advanced mathematics, which definitely form a very important part of the curriculum. They can't look aside and have a more understanding, closer understanding of technology. That is the way sometimes they are groomed. But having said that, let me give why do we need technologies? Because as I'm in the business of increasing efficiency with time, because demands on various kinds of systems increase because of the increase in population. Technologies can be outsourced, technologies can be bought, and technologies can be made in-house. Two aspects of management of technology. They definitely come under the overall scope of management of technology. If you are buying a new technology from somewhere, it definitely comes under management of technology because you should know what kind of technology to buy and use and adapt and incorporate. But I was about to give you one more example in the Indian context about management of technology. Before we talk about because the case study of the Swiss watch industry, somewhere down the line. If you see the bus industry in India, it's largely controlled by Volvo, to my observation. And now Mercedes-Benz is also trying to make similar kind of buses. The bus industry was a monopoly of some of our local players who made deluxe buses to, to ply between cities. We have a much better network of roads than what we had 20 years back. But this Volvo bus by itself is an experiment in new technologies in India, to my observation. Point number one, it has a rear engine. It is fully air conditioned. The air condition is controlled by the man who's driving. And definitely a lot of changes in the gear system and even in the way the in the braking system and even in the way the bus is driven. So much so that some of the best of the drivers from these corporations are trained to drive these buses, which ply at a 15 to 20% more speed than normal buses. I have enjoyed traveling by these buses and also marvel the general technology that has gone into making them. Even the seats are very well designed ergonomically. I happened to visit one of Volvo's plants on Hoskote Road in Bangalore. I could meet many Swedes. I saw many Swedes there. They're contributing to the development of these buses. Now they have put in multi-axle buses, which are also sought after by the public. Though some of the conventional deluxe buses are still good, but these buses are sought after because they travel at a 15-20% higher speed than normal bus. I think the accident rates with these buses are also less. I've not seen it to be unsafe. But you can see many kinds of homegrown technologies inside the bus. For example, in the night, the conductor puts a screen down so that the light from outside does not hit the people who are sleeping in the front seats of the bus. Maybe these buses are quite costly, but most state transport corporations in the country see, and even key private operators seem to be buying these buses. Definitely an example of higher order innovation the last 2 decades in the transport industry. Now, still, I have not told you what is management of technology and what it really entails. Before that, I would somewhere try to tell you the importance of technology. Or for about remanufacturing is also a very important part of technology. I'll just write it in case I forget. Remanufacturing. Well, I will come close to what I was trying. The Swiss watch industry. And what was it all about? The 1960s, gas was used by Swiss watch industry. Swiss watches were in great demand all around the world. I myself had a watch presented to me by my father's family. Fever Luba. I don't know where I lost it. But during the mid 1960s, the Japanese, I think, came out with more biotechnology using quartz crystals. I don't know how it exactly works, but they don't use gas. The Japanese probably did not have the prowess or the power to manufacture these watches en masse. So they approached the Swiss industry, watch industry, if they could manufacture it for them. The Swiss were not amused. The Swiss could not imagine watches without gears. But as watches without gears slowly became popular around the world, a lot of people in the Swiss watch industry, I think, were retrenched because of fall in market share. Now, the Swiss should have gone into quartz crystals technology 1960s or when they had a great advantage in the market so that they could continue to be leaders in the watch sector. They had to or have a decent market share in the watch sector, but they had to surrender it to Japanese makers who work with quartz crystals. I don't think today modern day watches that we wear ever uses gas. Now, to sum up what I've spoken to till now, there are three things I was generally talking about. One thing I talked about product development in the airline sector, which went wrong. That is a failure of new product development, definitely, and its management. Second, I told you of a constructive thing, of a better kind of technology in travel sector, the Volvo versus in India, which is an example of a very good new product development and management. Strategically different from earlier buses, example of a good technology development process. I told you of a case where a watch industry which employed large amount of people failed to foresee growth of new technology and had to surrender its market leadership just because the market changed very rapidly into a new form of technology which was more acceptable to the people at large. Now, I don't know if we could add many more. We are the threshold of another change. The whole world is the threshold of another strategic shift in this overall area of technology, especially in the area of transport. The cars and buses of today, which are run using um, petrol and diesel, I think they're called fossil fuels, which create emissions, carbon emissions, harming the environment, maybe contributing to global warming and making and polluting the environment and making it difficult for people to breathe fresh air. There is definitely a kind of shift in the horizon where people are actively considering going electric. So it's not very far in time that we would have electric buses and electric cars. I already have seen quite a few electric two-wheelers in the city of Bangalore, but we are at the threshold of a major technological explosion with many, many fundamental questions asked about the way of transport that is involved. A totally new form of technology. How a country like India, will have to adapt to it sooner or later. So I have given a case study of an example of some technology that is on the anvil, so that is somewhere in the future, which is going to haunt us in various ways, and we have to be prepared for it in all the measures and ways possible. I will again use one more example in India. And we are trying to understand what's management technology. We want to manage technology in the finest of ways. What does it mean? When you service your car, you're doing management of technology. If you don't service it, sometimes it can give serious problems in both short term and long term. But I will give one more example of technology shifts and changes that have happened in a country like India. Our railway system was once upon a time, to my memory as children, to my memory as a child, run by the steam engine. Very quickly, we shifted it to diesel locomotives. In diesel locomotives, I use compressed air to work on some kind of turbines or some kind of a rotor. In a steam engine, I use steam at high pressure to move rotors. In a diesel engine, I used compressed air that is created by a large compressor, generator, compressor network system. But we have left it behind to a large extent. We have electrified all our most of our railway networks. I use power from buses on the top of the train. I don't know what's the exact voltage, but my train works with such a system, and we are poised to work with such a system in the future. But right ahead of us, we have countries like China, Japan, who have magnetic levitation trains. There's very unique technologies which very few understand. We have trains that travel at 300 kilometers an hour speed, which we in India are yet to achieve. I think our trains travel at 150, 160, 180 kilometers per hour. The fastest could be so. But there might be an economic issue in it. People may not be able to afford the high prices of more sophisticated technology systems or technology platforms. But we are also making very fast progress in these sectors of locomotion. We are shifting from one area of technology to another area of technology quite quickly, quite smoothly, quite efficiently, and very effectively with minimum hiccups. So, what is the meaning of this word called management of technology? Now, I don't know how to really put it in place. If I could find out three very clear cut areas which I could say, well, this is management of technology and we need to manage it right, I've served the purpose. But before I go to that, I'll tell you one thing. What is technology management? Technology management is different from management of technology. When a pilot flies a plane, he's not involved in management of technology. He's involved in technology management. His job is logically very clear cut. Unlike the activity of management of technology, which is hazy and more boundaryless. But now, nonetheless, when a pilot flies a plane, he is working with the technology. He has to take off the plane, give it adequate throttle, get the plane to the right height, flight over that height for a specific period of distance, and then land the plane by slowly releasing the throttle and releasing slowing the acceleration of the plane, decelerating it, and touching down on an aeroplane and on an airfield or an aerodrome or an airport, whatever you might call it. He's doing technology management. He's managing a technology. At no point in this time in his actions can technology fail. Technology can fail if improperly managed. That's why he's given extensive training about all the eventualities and possibilities and the activities that he needs to undertake step by step. He's also given a co-pilot with whom he can interact every now and then that is humans and technologies. That's why I've got a cockpit voice recorder. If the pilot and the co-pilot constantly in some kind of altercation, I will not send both of them together on another flight activity. I would send another one with them who can collaborate and work together as a team. Humans and technologies. I was just listening to an air crash report in the city of Mangalore in India, where the co-pilot has warned the pilot that I am too high when I'm approaching the airport. He has told him many times. It would be a risky thing to land the plane from this height because there's no way I'll be able to touch the entry points of the runway. And he has asked him permission to go one circle again on the around the airport, which the main pilot has supposed to have declined, leading to a very serious accident. When the plane landed, it landed somewhere almost halfway from the starting point of the runway, and the remnant runway was simply not enough to control the whole plane, and crashing into the walls. An example of wrong technology management. Human error because of wrong collaboration. If the main pilot had listened to the voice of the co pilot, who was willing to take a full round trip around the airport, he would have touched the plane down much safely because of lack of communication, overconfidence on the part of the and wrong calculations and wrong understanding of heights early morning, they say led to such a mishap. Now I've given, but this is the one. This is one. When I drive a car, I'm doing technology management. I'm not doing management of technology. I must change the gears. I must drive it properly. I must brake it. I know what to brake. I should accelerate. And every domain has of technology has got its own aspects of technology management. Now let us see very quickly. I don't want to use a piece of paper. I've just seen something in it, but still, offhand, let us try to understand what is this activity of management technology. I was listening to Mr. Iyer. I will interrupt to slightly divert Mr. Iyer, who is the CEO of Caterpillar India, on a seminar on remanufacturing. Definitely a part of management of technology. Somewhere in bits and pieces, I'm trying to give an idea into you. Today, I've got an activity called as remanufacturing. Mr. Iyer says where I take old vehicles which are defunct according to the law. A given thing is does not have fitness over a period of time according to the law. But remanufacturing takes such vehicles, understands all the scientific parameters of the vehicle, and gives necessary inputs in the vehicle. And then I make a vehicle which is quite new, or looks new, or is almost new, but serves the purpose for which it is designed very much like a new vehicle. I happened to counter Mr. Iyer, asked him on what basis can you make such a statement? And said, I've got examples in Caterpillar where I have got remanufactured vehicles which are doing as good, or if not better, than new vehicles. Not totally false, but they have to pass the test of the law sometimes. I must have stringent laws to check all vehicles, or at least be wary and careful when I use them. A modern day, the modern day, the word called remanufacturing by itself is a new aspect of management of technology. I thought I would forget that example, so I'm my tryst with Iyer, though for a brief period. He gave a very good lecture on remanufacturing, and the Americans are good at inventive things. And true to that, he gave a good lecture what the organization is all up to and its emphasis and thrust in this activity of remanufacturing. Definitely not a bad idea. It's a kind of modern day. I see when I travel around Bangalore city, I see old cars which are discarded. I feel sad. Some of them are Mercedes Benz, and maybe they are lying down, lying in that state of dormancy, in utter neglect near some petrol pump, just because they might be short of some spares. Oh, spares is a very important part of management technology. Just write it in case. The spares, if you were to really understand and manufacture that spare, you could have that car on the road. For all practical purposes, very costly amount of metal and many other things are lying dormant just because we fail to resuscitate or revive it. We take it for granted 15 years the vehicle is gone. But sometimes if you probe and do innovative things, the vehicle could be put back on the road again, and must be made to pass the legal test so that to some extent the vehicle can works in an acceptable way for some specific function which may not be the full-fledged earlier function that it had, but for some specific limited function for which it could be pressed into service. Such cars and vehicles must be there all around the world, which according to me are a huge waste of economic resources. The amount of the time and energy that went into manufacturing it and the cost of materials that are simply what we call not being put to use or cost of it that are kept idle. There will definitely be large amount of spares inside that Mercedes Benz in Bangalore, which are badly wanted by someone in Serbia. It is sad that all that we need to just unscrew it, take it, and give it to Serbia. Some car in Serbia would run. They would be very happy to see it, to make it work. If this is in the hands of business people, they'll make huge profits out of it. But you must have reasonable profits. The focus must be to make some of these vehicles, get them back on the road as soon as possible in an acceptable way. Now, I've given 4 or 5 examples of management of technology. Now, let us come specifically to what is this matter called management of technology. What is it? Let us go through some logical steps. Well, before I go there, I was speaking to a nuclear scientist from Brussels near my house. Young lady by name Shreya. I was enthralled when I came to know that she was working in the nuclear sector and learning nuclear science and technology in Brussels. I just asked her what caused the Chernobyl accident, and she said that leakage. What kind of leakage? Most probably the water, the media, and what's called nuclear science that comes from within the core of the reactor, leaked into the reactor. Or there was some kind of an exchange. So the entire water was getting overheated. Not just getting overheated through the water, maybe nuclear discharge was there, creating an imbalance in the system and effectively leading to discharge of nuclear material into the air. Some kind of an explosion somewhere, mild explosion of the network is enough to create huge discharges. Uh, an example of failed, not management of technology, technology management. When there's a technology, I must understand and it be managed. If someone has shut down the reactor very soon, the amount of damage it would have created in that place would have been much less. Well, I don't know, first hand understand what has happened from what He happened to discuss with me that too for barely 5 minutes. This is what I understand. It could be a technology management issue, or maybe improper maintenance, which comes under management of technology issue, which created that kind of situation. Now, well, I just deviated a bit because I just something came in mind. Well, let's come to some two, three things very clear, in a logical way. What defines the activity of management of technology? Point one. Point number one: scanning the environment for new technologies and adapting it into the existing system. Scanning the environment for new technologies and adapting the technologies into the existing system. Point number two: maintenance of existing technology systems. Maintenance of existing technology systems. Now, I will repeat again. Point number one: scan the environment for new technologies and incorporating them. Point number two: maintaining the existing system. Point number three: developing spares as some of the spares of the existing system become defunct. Design and development of spares. Point number four: training people in the overall aspects of new technologies, technology management, management of technology, training people in those activities, training people in the activities of management technology and its related issues from time to time so that they don't falter in their area of work. They understand the importance of the way these technologies are working, especially when I've got technology shift. And I must have a clear cut procedure how I train manpower so that these technologies can work without any disruption or any other penalties or any other disaster. Though I have defined management of technology may not be perfect, there are many other issues in it, but they come under the overall ambit of these four large, broad categories. See, I'll tell you one more example. I used to work in a company called Graphite India, where Westinghouse Electric had installed two major transformers called as rectiforms. An electrical engineer that I am, those rectiformers are a very interesting part of my life. I used to check those diodes. I was given the task of checking those diodes. I don't know now how I checked them. I think it was through an ammeter, a clip-on ammeter. And if one of the diodes are not functioning, I have to get them replaced. But the management of technology does not lie there. The Westinghouse rectiformers were established in 1970s or so. But much later, they wanted two more rectiformers. But Westinghouse was not in a capacity to give those rectiformers because Westinghouse never made those rectiformers. That means rectiformers have to be made in India. And they were made by NGEL. Appreciation to the Indian electrical engineering community that they could duplicate these rectiformers very well. It speaks very highly about our abilities as a country. Some way that it comes under the design and development of spares that I was just talking because I suddenly crossed my mind. Because I've heard of transformers, I've not heard of a rectiformer. The input into a rectiformer is I think 11 kV. It steps input rectiformer is 11 kV, which is reduced to maybe some 440 volts, and then using large network of diodes, I make it into direct current. A voltage from one side is direct current. Direct current of a very high amperage. I don't know exactly now how much is it. It is a very high amperage at a very low voltage of 80 volts. The output is DC 80 volt and a very high current. Input is high voltage and low current. Input is AC, output is DC. And it must be credit of a new government electric factory in Bangalore that developed those two rectiformers, which were working along with the Westinghouse rectiformers. Somewhere the activity of maintenance also comes into the activity of management of technology. Definitely, somewhere I have not used that word per se, but definitely predictive and preventive maintenance is a first-hand component of management of technology. But management of technology in the global context might have many other ramifications, which was what I was trying to talk about. Let us come to those four activities which I said, which we could understand in slight detail so that people around the world who see this video will understand the importance of management technology and try to implement something if at all. What the world needs today is very simple. I need quick exchange of technologies around the world. The world would be a much better place to live in. We have got compatibility issues of technologies. If you can smoothen this, in a non-globalized world, I develop my own models and forms of technology, which was suitable for me. Today, when I'm in an environment of trying to share technology, I'm into compatibility issues at various spheres, at various levels, um, at various levels, and at various aspects, and in a multifaceted way. Maybe what I'm trying to say more precisely is that I've got various kinds of technologies. Each of the technologies has its own kind of compatibility challenges. Now, having made this statement, let me go to the four classifications so that we have it. Scanning the environment for new technologies is a very important aspect. So I used to work in the television industry before. I'm deviating slightly. We have three, four different kinds of television systems around the world. In India, we use the PAL system, the phase alteration line. The Americans, I think, use the NTSC. The French, you have got the CCAN. It all means a PAL television system uses different amount of scanning lines. The technology is different. The parts used inside will definitely be different. The ICs and such things. So I've got compatibility issues. The television made for one kind of TV system will not be instantly usable. If there's a word like in English, not be usable or can be or yeah, will not be of utility in another system where the broadcast is working on some other system. Now, see, I've just given you an example of non-compatible technologies in the television sector. Now, let me come to the factor or the first thing that I said, scanning the environment for new technologies. Why should we do that? I do that simply so that I want to improve the efficiency at which I operate. Just like gears, watches give rise to quartz crystal watches. Tomorrow it will give rise to some other form of technology. There are definitely many kinds of technology in the watch industry. Why should I scan the environment for new forms of technologies so that I am not left behind in the kind of competitive environment in which in which we operate. If one of your rival countries, not just rival, won't use the word rival, invariably everyone is trying to improve his efficiency. If he tries to use a new technology much faster than you, he gets many advantages out of it, which means I must have budgets, funds, and the research and development team who understand the technology and who can adapt the technology as quickly as possible. In this context, I've got a word called reverse engineering. In reverse engineering, I understand the other man's product very clearly. I've got a team of people who understand the other products very clearly, create a bill of materials, all the materials that are needed to make this new product, and be busy of making a prototype very fast. This is what I am trying to call development of new products, and of course, development new products at the same time, development of new technologies. Now, there could be many examples on this trend. There are many examples of the trend, especially when I have got companies, large scale companies around the world who are well set in the area of operation that they are into. This is a very major issue because they must always have people who can scan the outside world and understand the new emerging technologies. In India, I think a mobile network started with the GSM. I think today, by and large, we are working with the CDMA technology. I don't know exactly, but CDMA technology is code division multiple access is used for various reasons. The GSM, Global System for Mobile, is just an extension of the earlier form of radio communication, where I make cells and make communication within those cells. I have got problems when I go from one cell to other cell. The number of telephone numbers, same numbers, could be given to two cells. But I use, for various reasons, I use the code division multiple access system. Tomorrow, I could have a totally new form of communication technology emerging in the market. I don't fully understand how satellite technologies work, but it is very much in around the corner. If I've got satellite technology and links to satellites around in the space, I can get international communication much faster pace or rate than what I'm doing today. This is what I'm trying to tell. Scanning the world for new technology. This could be a problem with all kinds of companies and levels. A company could go defunct if a new technology suddenly hits the market because there would be a substitute product for the same kind of activity. What is the message? Hidden message in this. The hidden message is that companies, organizations, governments must constantly try to scan the environment for new technologies and create the necessary kind of infrastructure and backbone that might be needed to very quickly adapt these technologies as and when needed. Now, let us come to the second point. And the first point was scanning the environment for new technologies and making use of those technologies. The second one is maintenance of existing technologies. Or could be, definitely, I've got an existing technology which must be maintained and kept in full-fledged working order, which means I have to understand the system aspects of the technology and give it all the kinds of necessary inputs that it needs from time to time. If I don't, definitely this is more accurately an important aspect of management of technology. I need to constantly understand the kind of inputs that are needed to be given into an existing functioning technology. I might have an airplane. I might have an airplane. Now it has got many kinds of maintenance works that has to be conducted on it, and I've got many kinds of maintenance problems that might arise if I do not handle these activities properly without proper management. What is management? Understanding when that work has to be done, assigning the right kind of people who can do that work, using the right kind of resources that are needed, both technical and non-technical inputs that are needed to keep the machine functioning. Otherwise, the machine would not last too long, or it will give problems en route, sometimes creating various forms of disasters. Now, that is the second aspect of what we call management of technology. First, I scan the environment for new technology. I adapt them very fast. Second, I try to maintain my existing technologies, whatever it might take. It's not just whatever it might take. If I take a simple car, I need to give it engine oil periodically. Once the old oil gets worn out, I need to put the new right kind of oil. I have to clean the spark plugs. I have to recharge the battery. I have to clean and check the brakes. I've got a whole set of activities done, otherwise on the road I might get into some kind of a failure. In this I've got predictive mode and preventive mode of management of technology. In the predictive mode, in the preventive mode, whenever I embark on some work, I make all the preventive checks. In the predictive mode, I go into something called replacement. If some component has to be replaced according to the law, it's not just law, according to some science, I try to replace that component with a fresh component so that I don't get the problems that could happen in case, which means I'm trying to avoid firefighting. I know this can go down after so many hours of work, so I replace it with a new kind of can replace with a new item. This can be seen in the case of two-wheelers. I change the spark plug and I give it for maintenance. Sometimes the person concerned they changes the spark plug. After once he sees it has become slightly old. Example of some kind of predictive maintenance. Now, the third and the most important thing in the management of technology is the aspect of spares. Is in the aspects of spares and spares management. First of all, is to locate the right kind of spares as and when we need them. Is there any other aspect to this kind of this activity of spares? Now, there are two aspects in it. As an equipment becomes older, the possibility of sourcing its spares becomes a difficult thing. Especially if I am working with certain imported technologies. At any point in time, my principal can say that this given spare doesn't exist. First of all, I must get all the spares that are needed. If I don't have spares, spares management is a very important aspect of management of technology. If something fails, I remove that drawer and put a spare into it and start the system working. When I'm coming to design, suppose a spare is not available, I must be able to reverse engineer that spare and make it in-house in India. This can always be an issue. When I was to work in the transformer shop of BPL, we had a transformer which used to be supplied by the Japanese, who suddenly expressed inability to supply due to certain bans. That means we had a very onerous task of trying to make the transformer by ourselves, which I think was done well by some design team. And manufacturing came to us. But when we manufactured that, there are certain yardsticks and specifications around which the old transformer used to work. The design of the new transformer is totally different from that of the old transformer. Its weight is higher. But we did make a huge bunch of transformers which are higher weight, not a very well designed transformer, but it served the purpose. We got production going. And then gradually we made a lighter transformer, though not as good as the transformer which was made which was imported from Japan, which was very, very concise, but similar kind of a design, we also made incorporated, which was not very heavy, and which was very technically perfect. So I'm giving you an example of spares in management of technology. Anytime, at any point of time, anything can strike you. A thunderbolt can strike you. You must be prepared to design and make new spares. Sometimes because of a very small spare, which does not cost very high but very vital to the to the working of the equipment, I have got it for entire equipment dormant just because of a management of technology issue. In India now, post-internet internetization management of technology is working very well. It's not just management technology. The momentum of this entire area of management technology is catching up much faster because people understand the importance of these things, and it's easier to design and make things today thanks to internet and the collaboration of many what we call people and organizations around the world who are into various forms of specific work. Now, this is the third aspect. Now, that involves design, that involves definitely a new kind of engineering activity. It is a multi-technology, sometimes a multi-technology activity. I have to refit it into the system and try working again. I must see if it has got any side effects, the new spare working in the system. I must give a certain amount of test time where I test the system, definitely aspect of management technology, and see for sure that the system will not falter when it is put into actual area of operation. I think hopefully I've touched the three aspects which I was slated to. I don't know if there was some lack of confidence in what I told in the beginning and what I told now. By and large, I think it's congruent. If there is a lack of confidence, please understand those whatever I told you in the first instance. Just think about it. You will get certain ideas. The purpose of this lecture is to see that you look up and understand this activity of management technology, both graduates of management and graduates from engineering colleges. Design is not taught in our engineering colleges. The engineering students are sometimes not very good at design at all because they're not being taught design thinking. Sometimes a homegrown lad from the streets of our country, an unassuming lad, he's not even a street running a shop near the tracks of our country, has got ideas of management technology much more than many pundits who have gone through years of grooming and training, at least in the design activity of certain components. Sometimes the component might look obscure from outside, but he understands that it is just 5,000 turns of wire on one side and 2,000 turns of wire on this side with certain other inputs to get this kind of an equipment, which sometimes highly schooled children or people may not be, though it's very simple, but they may not be totally able to appreciate, or they may not be able to do any kind of service given a crisis. That means there are certain acumen and inputs of people of various kinds, both experienced and otherwise, is an important component of management technology. Now, I hopefully I've touched these points. If anywhere there has been some kind of a mismatch, please, because I don't have a board where I could write them very clearly and come back to it word by word. Maybe there's some kind of if at all, just smoothen it, not an issue. Now, having said these things, these four activities, these three activities which I mentioned already, I need now to create and manpower and harmonize manpower with all these activities so these activities work very well. In the first instance of making new technologies, I need scientific and technology people who can understand new technologies. I forgot to use the word patenting. I should check the patents around the world to see if there's some new technologies emerging in my area of activity which I could implement. Patenting means I have to pay the man who owns the intellectual property. Or having understood what it is, I must be able to source that product from some other source. but I must be able to scan the environment constantly for technology. I must have people who can do the scanning work. That means why I'm making this statement is sometimes this activity is not given enough importance in our organizations. We don't have enough people who can scan and develop new technologies, or not just not done develop new technologies, just understand what's happening around the market and try to use them in case of crisis. How many in India understand electric cars? I think very few, how it really works. What's the kind of motor used and what's the kind of battery support? Generally, very few are there. Even maybe in the auto, maybe who are people in the auto sector. It needs some years of experience to really understand what is actually happening there. Then I have got the second aspect. Coming to the second aspect of maintaining. I never use the word remanufacturing. Somewhere I used, yeah, under maintenance, you can use the word remanufacturing is a different activity in management technology. It's a totally an emerging sector. We will not touch it at all. Well, very quickly coming, yeah, when I'm maintaining, I need to have the right kind of people, right kind of training, right kind of grooming, right kind of management. A maintenance team has to be properly managed. Most important thing. To do sincere work in the overall activity of maintenance. And also clearly identify possible areas of fault as they do their work. Many plane crashes could have happened around the world because maybe because of faulty maintenance. If you go down to the nitty-gritty of things, there could have been some kind of human relations issue or some kind of issue plaguing that entire activity at that given point of time, which has led to that mishap. I was reading somewhere a plane in England, suddenly the cockpit window seems to have eaten away. And the pilot was sucked out, and the pilot was hanging half outside, half inside. The temperature outside is nearly minus 6 degrees centigrade. I don't know what that other co-pilot did. He brought down the plane to a nearest airfield, saving the lives of all people. They found that the maintenance people did not use the right kind of screw to screw the windshield of the cockpit when it was changed. A very simple thing, creating a possible which a disaster was averted, but it created a scare. So I'm talking of various kind of specifications. That person who fit that screw never understood the importance of what he was doing. Now, this is about maintenance. And of course, the most important thing is having people who can. And the third thing, the design part of spares. Every now and then, I must have manpower who can ask the question: what if the spare is not available tomorrow? I must remove it using a screwdriver or something and look into what the matter is inside and try to make the necessary possible preparations in case there is an issue of that kind in the future. That means I'm in the activity of designing a product in case there is some kind of lack of supply or some other issue plaguing that sector. That means I need people. I need people who can think like that. I must train and build people in the next millennium or next generation who can think and work in such dimensions. And the fourth I am talking about space is the HR of the human resources aspects of management of technology. I don't know what it means. I mean, in the human resources aspect, what it really means is very, very important. Now, when I talk human resources, I'm talking of selecting the right kind of people, developing them, training them, making them understand the importance of management technology, and giving them managerial posts so that they handle these activities that has to be done in the right way. I am talking of full spectrum of human resources that go hand in hand with such kind of activities. I am trying to harmonize and create and develop such kind of an overall technology driven or technology driven manpower not just technology, but a specific manpower for this kind of activity of management of technology, which are largely of the managerial kind, not of the functional kind. Now, this kind of issues, it largely talks about the human resource